A very good morning to the dignitaries sitting at the dais, our chief guest, Shri Kashinath Jha, and Dr. Ravinder Singh Minhas, our guest of honor. A very good morning to all of you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the experts in the field of oil and gas who are here in this conference today. My sincere thanks and appreciation to the organizers, Messe Frankfurt, for providing me the opportunity to deliver the keynote address here. And it is good to be back in the physical form of conference after such a long hiatus. And a big shout out for Messe Frankfurt for enabling that to us. We all are social animals. We love to face each other, listen to each other, enrich each other. The context of this LNG summit and the subject at which the keynote address is to be delivered, I must begin with 4 key news that I have read in the media over the last few days, which actually very nicely set the backdrop of this LNG summit. The first news is that over the last 12 days, 8 days the air quality index has been severe and hazardous in Delhi. Supreme Court has directed the government, both center and state, to actively consider a lockdown. The second information that I have gathered from the media is again the recently concluded COP26 at Glasgow, where our Honorable Prime Minister has reset the target towards our path to achieve clean energy by 5-point agenda, which he has termed as Panch Amrit Tatya. Point number 1, by 2030, non-fossil fuel based energy target shall be 500 gigawatt. Point number 2, 50% of energy requirement by 2030 will be achieved through renewables. Point number 3, to reduce the carbon emission by 2030 to less than 1 billion ton. Point number 4, reduce carbon intensity of the economy to less than 45%. And the last and the most daunting, India will attempt to be a carbon neutral and net zero nation by 2070. And it summarizes everything. It summarizes the robust policy, conviction and determination with which the government of India has been setting up the policies and enabling us to usher into the path of clean and green energy. And it is now up to us, the implementers, the owners, the contractors, the consultants, the various stakeholders in the oil and gas industry, to work towards achieving these goals that has been so arduously set by our government, and to see to it that we have to achieve these goals, because it is not merely an intention, it is a compulsion now. In the recently concluded ADIPEC, our Minister of Petroleum and Natural Gas, Sri Hardeep Singh Puri, has also emphasized that India is on the path of achieving a national gas grid. There is an investment of $60 billion US. We are aiming to build a pipeline infrastructure which shall encompass 34,500 kilometers. And in the process, we would actually try to increase the consumption of gas in our primary energy basket from the present 6.5% to 15% and more by 2030. It is known to all of us the importance of a gas economy that need not be reiterated. How to achieve is the question. And as a keynote speaker, my responsibility lies in a summary perspective which shall touch upon the various aspects of the entire gas value chain, which will be deliberated by the experts over the next 2 days, and I shall attempt at that. Our Honorable Prime Minister has also earlier defined the energy strategy of our nation. And the 4 pillars of energy strategy are energy access, energy efficiency, energy sustainability, and energy security. Now, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would like to bring your attention to the 2nd and 3rd pillar, energy efficiency and energy sustainability. These two cannot be adhered to until and unless we look at an option where the energy use is sustainable, the energy use doesn't lead us to a self-destruction mode. It is imperative that the cleanest of the fossil fuel, natural gas, get increased in its consumption in the primary energy basket. Natural gas has the least amount of carbon emission. It has negligible NOx, 0 SOx, and the most preferred bridge fuel to achieve to our ultimate objective of the cleanest fuel. The future of the fuel, it is still under, as our distinguished chief guest just mentioned, that a lot of research and development has to be done. The future lies in disruptive technologies. The future lies probably in the use of hydrogen as a source of energy, probably creating clean energy, electricity out of some absolutely disruptive technology. But the way to the future lies by adopting natural gas, because it is one of the cleanest fossil fuel, and the solution is known to all of us. The real question is how to address the issue of accessing the natural gas the way we would like to increase its consumption in the primary energy basket. I have touched upon the global warming issues, and I have also said that it is now a compulsion for us, it is not an intention. And why is it so? In the year 2012, in COP21, all the committee of parties have agreed upon to reduce the carbon footprint by 1/3. And that was because at that point of time it was thought that the global warming would be to an extent of 1 degree rise in temperature across the globe. However, a recent study has indicated it is not so. The researchers have now indicated the impact of global warming may be as high as 3.6 degree. And you know the impact of that. Approximately 27% of the land would go under the sea. Approximately 50% of the Arctic and Antarctic ice are going to melt. It is going to be a catastrophe. The world may not be the same as again. My job is not to explain a horror story. My job is only to remind all of us that as a stakeholder, we should pass on this beautiful earth the way we had seen it in our childhood to the next generation. And that is our cumulative responsibility. And we need to do whatever it is required to mitigate this climate change threat and the associated issues. And there is a very strange paradigm as far as our nation is concerned, that on one hand, we talk of reducing our carbon footprint, and on the other hand, we aspire to increase our use of energy as a developing nation to boost our economy. So these two are conflicting. And we must increase our use of energy, because this is a nation with an ever-ending appetite, and we have to be on the path of growth. And at the same time, we need to see to it that we adopt minimum damage to our environment, and it is sustaining. And the solution lies in a clean energy approach, which is at the present moment nothing else but a gas economy. The future lies in the natural gas, increasing the use of it. The future lies in the renewables. It is probably a combination of both. But the issue is that renewables are intermittent. So if we really have to harness the potential of generation of energy through renewables, it has to be evacuated to a smart grid, which will be natural gas based to provide its stability. And hence, the national gas grid was announced by Government of India. One nation, one gas grid, USD $60 billion worth project. This will add around 17,000 kilometers by 2024 to our pipeline infrastructure to enable the gas transportation and accessibility to every nook and corner. Presently, if you have seen our gas infrastructure, the pipeline networks are heavily skewed. They are primarily on the northern and western side of our country, and the eastern side and part of the southern sides are neglected. There are many gas-starved states on those areas. The idea is to reach gas to each and every nook and corner and to create a similar infrastructure for that. We have an aspirational 1.2 million man-day employment which has been planned that can be generated through this particular project, which is again the need of the hour. We are all aware that economy is in a spot of bother, but it is only about turning around and revival. We really do not have any other option. And the process of increasing our consumption of gas, both in the supply and demand side, the right steps have been taken by the government and the PNGRB. In the last couple of years, about 5 new LNG terminals have been added upon, with additional 3 on the drawing boards. The current capacity is around 39 MMTPA, which will be increased to around 71 MMTPA. But again, that is not enough, because there is a capacity utilization of only 50 to 60%. So it is not the numbers that are thrown at us. We have to go for much more, because the demand is burgeoning, the demand is ever increasing, and we have to constantly revise the number and up our ante, because we do not have simply any other options. In order to map the complete value chain of gas from the supply and demand perspective, the 3 key aspects of gas economy that come to my mind is availability, accessibility, and affordability. Now, as far as availability is concerned, indigenous gas productions in India are limited. We are all aware of that. There is an import dependency, but there are some good news also. The domestic natural gas output in the last month of October, was up by 24.3% to 3,007 million square cubic meter. This is an all-time record, primarily because of the increase in output by Reliance, by the BP ultra deep water wells in KG Basin D6 wells, and also ONGC U1B well at KG 98/2 block has started its production from 31st August, which has a capacity of 1.2 million MMSCMD per day. So while the spot prices all along the world has been increased, there is a impact on our exchequers. This is good news that our indigenous gas productions in whichsoever way are getting increased, and these are very vital in the days to come to embark upon our mission and goal to achieve a gas economy. The import dependency has got reduced this year from 54% to 49% in the first 6 months of the fiscal between April to September. And this again is a great boost. Government of India has traditionally over the last few years have come out with proactive measures of various exploration policies, the hydrocarbon exploration and licensing policy, the open acreage licensing policy, the discovered small field policies, and these are all positive steps. These are all about monetizing the smaller and the medium gas fields, and also look at to the opportunity to a open market where there are more competitors, and trust me, this is a huge area where there is a space for every player. It has also gone in the right and positive direction to offer higher price for the high pressure, high temperature wells, the deep water wells and ultra deep water wells. But again, as the gap between the supply and demand is ever increasing, we also have to look to newer technologies like gas hydrates. And we need to emphasize more on the research, more on understanding what should be the appropriate technologies. Coming to the other sources of availability, there had been extensive works done in the field of transnational pipelines. We have worked on various studies on Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India pipeline, TAPI, Myanmar, Burma, India pipeline, SAGE submarine pipeline, Iran, India, and Iran, Oman, India, and also the pipeline connectivity between Russia and India. At one point of time, EIL did a study with Gazprom for effectively bringing down cheap gas from Russia to India. But all this has got concluded in papers. Really, it has not yielded much result. So we need to identify the roadblocks, and we need to identify how to create an avenue to get the feedstock in these lines as well. Way back in 2011, China has started exploiting the gas from Myanmar by creating a transnational pipeline between these two countries. They are much ahead. They had derived the benefit, but the right steps are being taken in the right direction, and we are very hopeful that this is a work in progress, and we would be able to gather the benefits out of these exercises, G2G exercises. The LNG regasification capacity, which stands at 39 MMTPA, is said to go up to 71 and probably 100. But as of now, the LNG regasification terminals are heavily skewed on the western coast of India. India has a coastline of 7,500 kilometers. There is a tremendous opportunity to bring in imported LNG at an optimum price and create a boost to the gas economy. The eastern side, though now there are new terminals coming up in Ennore, Kakinada and Dhamra, but there is a huge appetite on that side because of the gas-starved nation on the eastern side. I had been fortunate to be a part of a couple of, or maybe more, ministerial delegations in various countries with regard to G2G collaboration to bring in oil and gas. So there has been an active consideration of bringing in gas from Arctic region in Far East Russia, from Sakhalin field, using the South China Sea Eastern Trade Corridor and landing it at the eastern coast. And if that happens, that is going to be a game changer, because the distance will be much lesser than the Gorgon field in Australia. And these are all activities which depend on so many other areas, but the earnest effort has to be there to materialize all these sources of energy, to leverage India's position as the 4th largest importer of energy, and also to understand that by 2040, International Energy Forum has predicted that India would be the largest importer of energy in the world. So India is a market which none of the countries or none of the producers can afford to ignore. Coming to the accessibility part, it is again that egg and chicken story. What precedes? The pipelines precedes, or it is the demand which creates the pipeline? We all know that if there is no access to energy, then there is no market. And while United States have around 2.5 million miles of pipelines, our nearest neighbor China has around 75,000 kilometers of pipeline, we are still struggling. But at the same time, it is not about the approach to wait for the infrastructure to happen to usher on a gas economy. Even with the right approach taken for the national gas grid, it is still going to take some time to have the pipelines in place. So we also would have to look into the intermittent options of how to take LNG to the gas-starved hinterlands of our country and make energy available to the common man at the lowest strata of the pyramid. Because, ladies and gentlemen, you would all appreciate, we can live without roads, there can be other forms of transport, we can live without certain other aspects of life, but we cannot live without energy. And if the lowest strata of our economy is not provided access to a clean energy, they are going to use the fossil fuels, the other conventional combustible sources of energy, and we cannot blame them. They are not educated enough, they do not understand the impact of the use of energy on this Mother Earth, but for them it is a struggle for the livelihood. So it is our cumulative effort to bring clean energy to the every nook and corner of the country, to the poorest strata of our society, for whom it is so apt and appropriate that they embark upon this journey on using clean energy. I have been talking about intermittent solution. The intermittent solution can be integrating the inland waterways. Our Ministry of Surface Transport has worked a lot on this. Now is the time that ministries do not work in silos and they come together. Inland waterways can be very nicely used by small makeshift LNG vessels, flat bottom vessels, which can use a draft of less than 2.5 meter to take it from the ports to the hinterlands of the country. There is an immense business possibility between the oil and gas consultants and the shipbuilders to collaborate and create such intermittent form of LNG transport. This LNG transport option can also be used in the roadways. LNG can be used as a plug and play transportable module to be taken to the remotest of the place and can be a source of generating electricity. And this has been demonstrated in small scale. The time has now come to adopt it, give it a business scale, and try to take it to areas where we do not have pipeline access, where we do not have the requisite gas infrastructure, but we still have aspirations to use clean energy. Our ambitious Sagarmala project talks about modernization of all major and minor ports. And it is imperative that all our ports have LNG regas terminals and storage terminals with them, so that these ports, which are actually the access to the country, can be harnessed for bringing LNG, storing them, and then transporting them and making it available across the country. It is imperative that the right to use clean energy be considered as important as fundamental right. Accessibility must be given to all strata of people living at every geographical region of our country, not just merely in the northern or western part. And we don't have to look outside. We have examples right within our country. The state of Gujarat over the last few decades, the use of gas has been in excess of 26%. They have embarked upon a gas economy much before than the country as a whole has looked into it. There are 3 major regasification terminals at Dahej, Hazira and the Mundra, latest one. And it has attracted so much of business from rest of the country and from outside the country as well because of its approach towards the sustainable and continuous and clean energy. It is all about increasing the scale and adopting the approach countrywide. Coming to the last key aspect of affordability. The clean energy is not only, it does not only have to be clean, it also has to be affordable. There is an aspect of subsidy in it. While we are looking at increasing the use of gas in our primary energy basket in the way we want to use it, we must understand that the cleanest of the fuel are not always that easy to be accessible and to be made available to the large appetite of this country. So it is about the right to use, it is about the sectoral preferences. My domestic production of gas are available at a cheaper price. There is a price mechanism which is revised twice a year based on the 4 gas indexes across the globe, very rationalized. But still it is cheaper than the spot and the long-term prices of imported LNG. So rightfully this access to this cheaper indigenous gas has to happen in the domestic sector through piped natural gas, for the transportation sector through CNG, and for the industries located in the urban, semi-urban and rural areas, which otherwise are going to use the dirty fuels like furnace oil, like naphtha, like diesel. And next comes the fertilizer. We all know the importance of use of natural gas in the fertilizer sector, but now is the time to look in a completely different way, because if we reduce use of imported natural gas, we can save a lot of money in the upcoming fertilizer projects. Talcher Fertilizer Limited has already shown us the way, where they are producing syngas from coal and using that syngas to create urea and ammonia, and in the process they are saving in excess of 1500 crores per year. And when we are talking of oil and gas economy, it is not only about LNG. LNG is only one part of the story. It is to understand how we can actually embark upon usage of gas made available from different sources. There is this government scheme called Satat, compressed biogas, which can be generated from the agricultural waste and the municipal solid waste. The cumulative capacity again is about 62 MMTPA. This can be a huge boost to the farmers. It can increase their income, disposable income, and it can also solve the impact of stubble burning that all of us in Delhi are experiencing. And there are assured offtakes by the oil and gas majors. Already there are about 1500 such plants which are being put together at an estimated price of USD 20 billion. Coal gasification route, compressed biogas route, every possible route of generating gas and use that as a cleaner fuel need to be looked into. Coming to the compliance that we have already given to COP21, that by 2030 we are going to bring down our emission and our carbon footprint by 1/3. That can never happen if we cannot use natural gas effectively in the field of power generation. Presently, we have an installed capacity of 26 gigawatt, but about 50% of our gas-based power plants are not operating or operating at a very minimal utilization factor because power sector cannot absorb the volatility of the prices of natural gas. If the price goes more than $4 per MMBTU, it is not feasible to use gas to generate electricity. Then the cost of electricity will be so much that the end consumer will not be able to afford that. But at the same time, we know that if until and unless we generate at least 60% of our electricity from gas-based sources and we reduce our dependency on thermal use of coal-based power plants, we would not be able to achieve the target of COP21. Leave aside the recent targets that has been modified in COP26. So the solution lies in a cross-sectoral subsidy. There are sectors like oil and gas, which can very nicely absorb the volatility of the highs and lows of LNG across the globe, because in oil and gas, we can very effectively use natural gas as an internal fuel and replace naphtha and use that naphtha as a feedstock to create the building blocks for petrochemicals, and it increases the GRM for the refiners. It's a win-win situation. At Engineers India, we have done so many studies and found that the returns are fantastic. And this was conceived by us way back in 2010 and 11. And I'm very happy to state that now almost all the major refiners are embarking on this line of using natural gas, replacing the liquid fuels, naphtha and kero, and utilizing them to the best possible products to increase profit for the refiners. So this cross-sectoral subsidy scheme can be looked into, because end of the day we have to increase our use of gas in those sectors which are essential, such as power, and those sectors which cannot afford to pay the high price of gas. There is again a huge appetite for using imported C2, C3 and create new technologies to produce petrochemicals, specialty chemicals and niche chemicals. Presently, all of these are imported and have a huge impact on the exchequers, and if we can use gas to create indigenously, it will give a complete boost to the economy. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to understand that energy is an enabler to the economy. We all know how the downward slide has been in the economy because of the impending COVID over the last 2 years. Now is the time that we turn around and we again go back to the path of growth. And energy projects can only be a catalyst to that, because large oil and gas projects, they are mega projects. They have a huge employment directly and indirectly. They are located outside the urban areas because of environmental reason, and that is the reason they can create infrastructure around them. It creates road, it creates power requirement, it creates power generation, it creates employability, and because of that, disposable income at every strata, and because of this disposable income, it gives a real fillip to the retail sector. So it is the complete cycle in the economy in which the energy projects acts as a catalyst for the growth. All of us, all the distinguished oil and gas professionals who are here in this forum, it is our individual responsibility as a stakeholder in whichever capacity we are to kickstart this process, because opportunity is like a sunshine, you blink and you miss it. I will come to the end of my speech by referring a statement by JP Morgan, which I recently read in an international forum at London. JP Morgan had described India as a nice, as nice houses built on a very bad road. Obviously, it is implying that India has enormous possibility, but not so good at implementation. And in order to go forward in achieving all the benefits of gas economy, ladies and gentlemen, let me say, we have no other option. Even the world has no other option but to only pray that India succeed. Because if we don't, it is not only on our nation, but there would be a huge impact on the entire globe because of our position, which is going to be the largest energy consumer of the world in future. And with this, I wish all success to the impending various sessions over the next few days. I am sure the experts are going to touch upon each and every aspect of the upstream, midstream, and downstream of gas economy. My other engagements would prevent me from staying here, but my sincere request to the organizers that please make it available, the recordings, so that we can get enriched. And last but not the least, it is not about having enriching and interactive sessions. Until and unless all of us come together, create a dossier, the pointers that comes out of the various discussions and present it to the policy makers, probably to Niti Aayog, we will fail in our duty, because it is our cumulative duty for all of us to be responsible for the next generation, to make available the Mother Earth the way it is that we have enjoyed in our childhood. Thank you so much.